Well, so I don't waste everybody's time. Why don't I start with how I got into this? And then when Frank comes on, he can talk about our team. Is that okay with you guys? Yeah.
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. Well, it started because I've been having Optimum online problems myself, and Jessica knows all about that, probably can tell you. But so I put a post on a Facebook page in town here, and got, I think we counted 506 people signed a petition that I created through change.org. This was in October last year. And what I didn't do, which is so wonderful to have Jacob on board, is I didn't put in details. It just told where they were from. It doesn't have any contact information or anything or any of their comments, but we got a lot of people. So we'll show you that in the PowerPoint. And a lot of people wrote in on the Facebook page complaining about problems with Optimum. And, that's where it started. Well, then I saw these guys and their survey, and I wrote in on the survey and joined the tri-state coalition.
Fair Internet Coalition now.
Yes, now we changed the name. And Frank is here now. It's perfect timing.
I'm here.
Yay.
All right.
Introduce us all, Frank.
Okay, so as Kit or Kathen was saying, my name is Frank. My last name is Kanter, and I'm the administrative director of what used to be called the Tri-State Coalition for Fair Internet Service, but we decided to condense that name, and we now call ourselves the Fair Internet Coalition. It kind of has a better roll off the tongue, and it makes it easier for people to understand who we are and what we do. Before I do anything else, I want to thank everybody for stopping by today, particularly you, Senator Hinchey. Obviously we need to get our message in front of as many people as we can. And before I go any further, I just wanted to introduce the other members of the leadership, which are here. Jacob Kraniak, who was here a minute ago.
I'm still here.
Okay. Jacob is the deputy director and our lead technological guru. He's the one that creates all of this for us. And of course, Kit or Kathen Cowan is our soon-to-be treasurer and outreach director for upstate, Ulster, Orange County, etc. We do have others that are.
Not to interrupt you, sorry, but we are hearing that there's no. I want to make sure that I know the whole point was to stream it too. I'm hearing that there's no audio from people watching on Facebook. So Jacob, I'm going to say that.
You're able to see that? Well, I was hoping that wouldn't be an issue, but we are recording. Since we're recording it as well, I guess we can share the Zoom recording for later.
And people are watching though.
One of our team members is watching and flagged it, so I just wanted to make
great.
That out there.
Thank you. I'll try to work on that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can we put up a closed caption maybe? Maybe that'll help.
I don't think Zoom has that functionality. Only Google Meet has that functionality.
Okay.
In any event, what I was saying is that over the last few years, there's been something of a decline in the manner and rate at which there's actual competition in the internet service provider space, and we collectively got together just to give you a little bit of genesis or an understanding as to how we came about. I actually started a very, very small group on Nextdoor, a little kind of bush league sort of thing. And inside of about a month or so, I had several hundred people that were contacting me across that very small platform. Toward that end, ultimately, I met Jacob through that same platform, and one thing led to another. We ended up expanding. And we expanded so rapidly and made every effort to be as inclusive as possible, not only of people in our region, but also of people in upstate New York, which is where NY-46 is, people even higher up within the state. I've been in contact with people as far north as Buffalo within New York State. And the one thing they all seem to have in common is a lack of any kind of solid competition to speak of. Now, Jacob, can you put up the Ulster County, New York 46, the competition map, please?
Let me see if I can have that.
It's in the presentation, which I have up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So
so Kate, why don't you share that?
Okay, let me get it.
Okay, so while that's coming up, there are several places that we know for a fact have either one or in some cases none of the necessary internet equipment in order to be able to get people not only reasonable pricing in internet but also the actual services that they need. More recently, what's been happening is, and I had a conversation with a gentleman named Robert Boyle, who may or may not be on this call right now. And that conversation included the fact that right now we're trying to squeeze digital signal through very old and antiquated analog equipment. And it's kind of like trying to play your CD on an old style 8-track tape recorder. No matter what you do, it's not going to work right. And one of the things that we've been experiencing, and I'll also, for the edification of those who were not attending our meeting, I am probably one of the people that's had more problems with this than most, because we are in an area here. Okay, I see Ulster just popped up here. So this is one of the things that you can see very quickly in terms of why there is no competition. The vast majority of the area here is green, meaning or indicating that there's only one provider. And to the extent that there are lesser areas, a very small area in the lower right-hand corner of your screen right now, that have blue, that indicates that there are two people that are internet service providers. Now, in those instances where there are, in fact, two internet service providers, what you get is something of a schism. And that is that there's a paradigm that develops where people will give one of the companies a 2-year contract or whatever it is that they want in order to get their service. And then after the 2 years, they'll play one against the other and they'll jump ship and go to the other one. And the companies like Optimum or Verizon or Spectrum, or pick anyone you want, they're aware of this. They, from a marketing and from a technology perspective, their companies couldn't survive if they were not aware of how this is happening. In the meantime, there are other areas. The area that Jacob and I are coming to you live from right now, which is the east end of Long Island, that area has what you can see is something of a bigger problem, because there's a cutoff point right around Center Reach, New York, or for those of you that are more local, Route 97. Everything east of that has exactly one service provider, that being Optimum. The areas west of there have two service providers for the most part, and that becomes somewhat problematic. Now, some entities like New York City Mesh is one of them. I would assume by now that just about everybody is familiar with the term New York City Mesh. And just by way of a brief explanation, New York City Mesh is the successor of the old style municipal system that was created several years ago by the New York City government, and became antiquated and all but shut down until this group of enterprising people took over and turned it into what is now a going concern. They've been building out, as you can see in the little inset here, they've been building out different nodes and different areas of the city, and these places are designed in order to pick up as much traffic as they can, but they do have their limitations. And Jacob, I think you're probably better suited to speak to the limitations of this sort of technology.
Right. Sorry, there's a bit of an issue right now. I'm trying to fix. There's the stream is not showing the presentation, so I'm just looking to fix that.
Okay, all right. So
So you can keep.
I'll move on to other smaller entities. As I indicated a couple of minutes ago, I did have an at-length conversation with Robert Boyle, who is the president and CEO of a company called Planet Networks. Now, Planet Networks is a small to medium-sized ISP or internet service provider currently operating in certain sections of New Jersey. He is not the only one that's doing that. There's also Starry Networks and GoNetSpeed. And we've been in contact with most of these organizations in an effort to find out what is the most important thing on people's minds with this is what would it take to get people or companies to invest in the infrastructure required to bring better internet service, or in some cases, even the mildest of internet service to other areas. And the answer is probably exactly what you'd expect. The answer seems to be, among other things, money. And what my understanding is that there's a cost in order to build digital infrastructure. There's a cost that's somewhere in the vicinity of about $20 million per mile in order to create something that would be durable and long lasting. That's the bad news. The good news is that when completed, these sorts of projects are good for 40 to 50 years. So when we do the math, yeah, there's a lot that has to happen. Having said that, there are possibilities for investment on the private and public sector in order to lay things out so that we can push things into areas where they're not already being used. UlsterCounty, where KID is right now, is kind of a shining example of places that could benefit from something like that. I know, excuse me. I know that from a topographical perspective, there's a lot of good terrain and a lot of areas that it could benefit from almost any sort of technological upgrade that we can bring to that area. Now, do we have the PowerPoint from the beginning? Can you back up, please?
Sure. So this is the beginning of right here. So first we have the section on the social media. How the consumers are perceiving broadband availability, and then we have the other providers. So what do you want to see first?
Let's go to the top.
Okay. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Down one, please. All right. So here we see that there's, for lack of a better way of putting it, exactly what it says: a large community of very unhappy subscribers, people that, like me, are not shy about speaking their mind when it comes to this. We have actually created a survey that has been circulating pretty much everywhere at this point. In fact, we have a robot, if you will, what we call a survey bot, that actually monitors the internet for responses to our survey. So every time somebody responds to it, we know that we have responses coming in from whatever jurisdiction it is. Now, you can also see here that there are other entities, other organizations that are also out there doing something similar to what we're doing. The good news is that we're in the process of merging with all of these. We've reached out to several of these entities already, and they've all agreed to be subsumed under our banner, if you will. And we've also reached out to more that we don't have any responses from yet. But there's absolutely no reason to think that that they're not going to want to join with us, because we're doing everything humanly possible to get things moving in the right direction. Having said that, there are some obstructions that we have, and I think one of them is it's almost impossible to get an audience with anybody in the chain of command of Altice or Verizon or any of the people that are or entities, I should say, that are causing these issues. no matter what we do, no matter what letters we send out, no matter what organizations we contact, we do run into this something of a brick wall when it comes to this. Until recently, there was something that happened in New Jersey, and the Bureau of Public Utilities in New Jersey, and I know that we do have somewhere within this PowerPoint, we have some of their information. We'll certainly make it available to everybody on the call. They have essentially mandated and instructed or directed, in this case, Optimum, because they were the target of the original investigation, to provide, I believe it's 21 different facets of information that that they want, that the commission wanted to look at in order to determine what is truly going on and removing the hype or the fiction from the nonsense. One of the things that flabbergasts me personally is when you make a phone call to try to speak to folks, they not only duck the calls, but they're also, shall we say, less polite about it. There have been phone calls that I've made trying to reach out to people in various higher echelon areas of Optimum and Verizon, for that matter. And no matter what happens, I think that they realize that that the time of lack of competition is kind of fading, and there are entities, organizations, and people out there that are trying to do everything that we can to bring that to an end. Okay, so while we have GoNetSpeed up here, this is one of the organizations that I was talking about a moment ago. GoNetSpeed, you can see, has different packages of service, and I believe it's on the right. Actually, on my screen it's on the left, but on your screen it's probably on the right. It shows where their dense populations are for their internet services. Now, these particular entities, along with things like Starlink and others that are starting to come out, some of them are more expensive than others. Starlink, for example, is $500 to get in the door, equipment-wise, and then $99 roughly per month per household. And we expect that once we're able to level the playing field here somewhat, we will end up with a scenario where the expenses will come down. I mean, it's just like when Burger King took on McDonald's, price of everything came down. Free market, okay, thank you. Starry Networks is another fixed wireless technology, and these will also use, excuse me, these are also affordably priced and in the decent speed range. If you look on the right of your screen, you can see that this particular company offers everything from unlimited data to expert installation. Now, depending upon who you are and where you are, you may or may not need it. People like Jacob, he doesn't need that. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to handle everything. People that may be living in an urban area, or even worse, in a rural area, may need help with their installation and with being able to create an environment where they'd be able to have services. Then you have people that are in between there, which would be me and probably Kid as well. And those areas may or may not require help. However, that leads me into a brief recitation of customer service.
Frank, just to interject for a moment, perhaps we should bring up, I have a collection of our survey data that shows the responses that we've received, and I have some excerpts from Ulster County specifically about their comments.
Okay, let's go.
All right, one moment. So that is going to be, so right here, this is just, I'm going to take over a little bit, Frank, if that's all right, just to explain this.
Yeah, go on.
So first thing you see here, this is a summary of some of our key data from the survey we've been running. We are sampling data from multiple regions. So this is not specifically Ulster County, but it kind of speaks anecdotally to the larger issue at hand, given that they cover, Altice covers a large market. So on the left, I don't know if it's big enough for everyone, but you can see overall satisfaction, a majority of those are under 5 out of 10, one being the worst. Almost no one would recommend them to a friend or a family, and they have, was that almost 9 out of every 10 people responded had an issue with internet service in the past year. As far as customer support, more than half rate them a 1 out of 10 in customer service satisfaction. You also see our location demographics there. It is a majority from New York, though a lot of those responses are from downstate. And the last thing on the right here, let me just minimize this. Yeah, this is the key point on the right there. 80% of people say that they don't have an option to switch to another provider. But right after that, if they had the option, 95% say they would switch immediately if they were given the option. So it's, it is an availability issue. If they had a competitor to switch to, they would be more than happy to switch. And if I'm just going to advance to the next slide here. This is just a screenshot excerpt of some of the responses we've gotten specifically from Ulster County. And if you just kind of give that a glance over, you can see, folks are generally unhappy with the service they've received. Network drops out. Kids can't do their school now during the pandemic. People can't work from home. I can even speak anecdotally myself. I've had issues where I wasn't able to join meetings for my job because my Optimum internet dropped, and I don't even use their equipment. I use my own high-end modem and router, not provided by them, and I still have the issues. And just recently, I had my own technician stop by and confirm that there's an issue with the network node, but having heard that same story last summer, nothing has really changed. And if I had an option, I would be more than happy to switch. So this is really a key issue that needs to be addressed.
So additionally, as you're looking at that, I would also point out anecdotally for myself, my wife and I moved into our house about roughly 2 years ago. And we were living in an area before this that actually had two providers, one being Verizon, the other being Optimum. When we moved out here, we ended up with only one, and that was Optimum. Since we moved here, roughly 2 years ago, I've had 9 different technicians that have come out to my house, spent hours in total, even running lines from the street to my house and then running them under the street. I mean, some of the things they had to do in order to get things to supposedly work properly were very interesting. Unfortunately, they didn't work. And even as I sit here now, for those that are not aware of it, I actually run a business, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to deal with my business issues and getting things done. And one of the things that I wanted to lead into, because I think we're pretty much there at this point, is from the government perspective. We have here the town of Brookhaven, and the town of Brookhaven, which is where both Jacob and myself live. There's been a kind of a phenomenon where between franchise fees and other realities of internet life, we have never had the ability to have a second competitor in the market. Now, we've asked questions, we've talked with town supervisors, we've pretty much asked anybody and everybody that can get a fair answer for us. At the moment, we have none other than supposition on our part. And the supposition is that there's got to be something going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of that's preventing these folks from coming in. So we made some inquiries about that. And in talking with Verizon, it turns out that part of the reason why this is not happening is because Verizon themselves won't come into the area. And we're not the only area. In parts of Ulster County and in parts of places even further north, they won't go there either for exactly the same reason. They don't want to make the investment. And And fortunately or unfortunately, in 2021, there's nothing that can compel a bad business decision on their part, which right now is all that it is.
Well,
Which is
Frank,
why they're, yeah, go ahead, Kate.
yeah, Frank, I just wanted to add that in our area in Ulster, Optimum owns all the cables and the devices. And so no other company will come and rent from them. And to put in the infrastructure, they won't do that because we don't have enough people.
Right, and this is
Right,
one of the
so-
reasons why we see a lot of growth in these new startup companies, the smaller mid-sized providers, using new technology where they don't have to rely on the fiber infrastructure that already exists. You have even Starlink, we haven't mentioned, by SpaceX, the new satellite net provider that's covering a lot of the rural underserved areas in the country. That's a huge boon for that area, and I think it's going to be very successful. That and downstate in the city, you know, we have all these fixed wireless providers using their mesh network technology to send signals between antennas across the buildings. But those two different pieces of technology, even 5G, speak to fiber being just more expensive than it needs to be, and there's a lot of barriers to get that technology either built out or to license that technology from other providers that already own the infrastructure, which is a big barrier for other entrants that might want to expand.
Okay, so several of the entities that we've talked to, be it Starry Networks, Planet Networks, take your pick. It doesn't really matter. It all comes down to the same scenario, and that scenario is that that we need to have some kind of push towards getting services into areas where they don't currently exist, and in order to do that, there's going to need to be a combination of a few things in order to make that happen. One is monetary assistance, and there are folks that I've talked to in the private sector that are willing to make investments. However, when you're talking about $20 million per mile, that's a lot of money. And so one of the other ideas that we came up with, and I don't know how or even if this is possible, would be to do something like what the New York State Dormitory Authority does. And Senator Hinchey, I know you're probably aware of the fact that the Dormitory Authority, both upstate and downstate, they float bonds relatively routinely in an effort to build new dorms or new places, new buildings in places where they're needed. So I wonder if some sort of infrastructure along those lines could be developed in a similar fashion. You know, speaking only for myself and probably for a large portion of the membership that we have, I'm pretty sure you'd get people to take you up on those bonds to finance such a thing. And that might also help to get the ball rolling and create a model for the national stage. Yeah, New York's got a huge problem with this, but it goes way beyond New York. You know, I've been in contact with people in Alabama and other places that are much further away, and the only place that doesn't seem to have this issue at the moment is California. Why, I don't know, but that's my understanding.
Frank,
so,
not to interrupt, just want to make sure that we cover. There's a couple important points I want to make sure we cover before Senator Hinchey has to drop. The first was the request for some kind of commission to be established within the state government, much like New Jersey did with their Board of Public Utilities, and establish, if we can, an investigative hearing, much like they did, and we can send you this information, where consumers can bring their complaints and issues forward to a body of government entities that would be willing to listen to those complaints. That's our first request. Second would be if we can approach this from an angle of an antitrust issue, where these monopolies are allowed to continue, where there's no competition, there's no way for someone to switch to a comparable option. And if we can get Letitia James from the AG to look into that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Right now, because we mentioned the Attorney General, it's worth noting that that we actually do have a meeting that's coming up with folks at the Attorney General's office. I believe it's scheduled for later this month. I could be wrong about that, but I've seen it on the calendar. And we also have some members of our organization that are actually directly related to the AG's office. For that reason, we're trying to kind of bring this to a head so that we can put this in front of everybody and anybody that's in a position to help us in any way at all. Even if we may be able to get somebody from Optimum, Verizon, Spectrum to come on a call like this and answer some questions. We've not been successful with that at all, and it's not as if we haven't made those requests repeatedly, but it's not in their interest to do it.
Frank, for the last few minutes, I'd like to hear Senator Hinchey and her comments.
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna jump in. I was trying to find the right space to do it though, because of course we want to hear from all of you. We agree. The state of broadband and internet in our state, the country, but especially in New York State, is atrocious. It's one of the things we talked about on our campaign, and I've become known as the broadband lady in my conference because I talk about the lack of access at all times with my colleagues all the time. Because yes, I mean, both from the perspective of cost and just kind of sheer lack of communication, especially when you only have one provider, but also I represent a very rural district, right? We represent 5 counties, and many of our communities don't even have the access, as you have touched on here as well. And so one of the things that I'm really proud of that is a start to get some of the data that we need to have is that in the budget this year, as I'm sure you know, but in the budget this year, we have the Broadband Comprehensive Mapping Study, which for the very first time ever will give us household level data as it pertains to who is covered and who is not and where those gaps are. We don't have that information. Many of these companies have said that they got money from the state and other places to build out infrastructure. We know that a lot of that infrastructure has not been built out, but we have no way to prove that because we don't have household level data. So this is the first step that we need to actually start to get to that next step of really building out and getting people the access and the internet that we all know now is effectively a utility, right? I mean, we are expected to have working internet. We could talk about the lack of internet we have in our own office in Kingston, how challenging that has been. The only reason I'm even on this Zoom consistently is because I'm not in my Kingston office. Usually I'm kicked off of Zooms pretty regularly when I'm there. So I hear you. You know, we are trying to figure this out too as much as possible. So the household level piece is really important to start to both hold companies accountable to the build out, as well as recognize where those last miles are, because we call it last mile. We know there are many. So where are those gaps? And let's figure out real ways to do it. Is it some of this new technology, as you cited before? Is it bringing in new providers and incentivizing more people to come in? You know, I think there's a number of different ways that we'll be able, or things that we can discuss at that point. We have to know what we're dealing with in a real way first. You know, there is a bill that was just recently introduced. I'm sure you've seen this as well from Senator Ryan and Assemblymember Neely Rosick, basically enacting broadband as a public utility, declaring it essential, which is also a really important part and step for us to move forward in this and getting some real better regulations. On the antitrust side, I agree with you. You know, I think we were supposed to have a representative from Congressman Delgado's office here. You know, it's a bit more of a federal issue that, you know, we try to elevate, and I know that his office is aware and trying to work on this as well, but I would encourage more continued conversation in that place. But we're happy to raise it as well, and we have talked to the Attorney General's office, but we're happy to continue to raise it as well as a big issue. You know, it was something that I brought up in one of my very first conversations with her, as something that we needed to look into just more broadly about the lack of access, and this being one of those pieces. So we can do that, and we can happy to work with you on it. And the other interesting thing too is now we know that broadband is infrastructure, but to see the acknowledgement, especially from the federal government, as it pertains to broadband being part of their infrastructure package and calling that out. And so we know the build out is expensive, and especially in more of our rural communities. But I'm very, I feel really positive that a lot of the money, or a good chunk of the money in this impending, hopefully, infrastructure package coming from the federal government will go to broadband build out, right? That's huge. And so we have to continue to talk, not just amongst ourselves, but to everyone, and say how important that is, especially to our federal representatives and our partners in federal government, to make sure that this bill does get passed, and that this package gets passed, and that broadband is a core piece of that, because I think that will be helpful as it pertains to the cost. Jacob, we are happy to try to model anything that was done in other states. If we have not done them here, we would be happy to work with you on that and send us the information. And we'll check it out. We work really closely with the Commission on Rural Resources in the Senate, and we've talked a bit about how we can start to tackle the broadband issue. So we're happy to work with you on that too.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to send you the information I have on New Jersey's project, because I've been following it very closely, and
Great.
They're at the stage now after the Board of Public Utilities found that there was worth investigation into Optimum and Altice, specifically for whether they are meeting their regulatory requirements from the merger with Altice and Cablevision in 2015. That's actually being looked at now. They've sent a list of requests to Altice and demanded that they provide this information within 30 days. So they're really heavily working on that. And I would love for something in New York to happen. I know that's part of the new legislation in the budget, was that New York will also do public hearings, at least 2 a year, in regards to broadband availability and accessibility. So if we can get that started here, I think that will be a good first step to give consumers a platform to voice their concerns.
Right. And just so you know, in wrapping up, if there's anything that you believe that anyone or all of us can do to help, just reach out. I mean, whatever you need, we're there. There won't even be any questions. You just tell us what you need and we'll take care of it. The other thing is household information. You were mentioning the surveys that we've been doing. I don't think you can get any more grassroots or household level than that. And I don't know, have we made that information available?
Yeah, absolutely. I can provide that, at request. We don't have any names, but the validating information we do have is email address, which you can follow up on. And we have zip, state, and county.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask for that too. And I saw one that someone had in one of the answers had reached out to us. I want to make sure, that they know we still care. And that we're following up on all of this too. But if there are other people also specifically in, Ulster County, Greene County, and the 46th district, if there's people that you come across who need help, we are happy to work with them and work with them from a constituent side with the companies to see if there's things we can do in the immediate. And we'll check out that data. And I think as you're doing more, we're happy to try to work with you. And I thank you for all of the work that you're doing too in this space. I know it's frustrating. And
oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
To say the least. But I appreciate all of you taking this on and really trying to make a difference here, because the way it's working isn't working, and we need to make some real strides to be better and to get everyone really the resources that they need. So we're here to help.
Right.
On that, we all agree.
Yes. Just really quick, who should I be sharing the survey with where you can get the quickest access? Should I share it to you directly or to Jessica?
If you share it to Jess, we'll share within our office.
All right, very good. I'll send it to her right away.
Great. Thanks for meeting with us, Senator.
Yes,
thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
And
Absolutely.
Jesse and Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. No, happy to do it. This is a really important issue. And so again, I thank you for all of your work, and we will definitely be in touch.
Oh, and by the way, for Jesse and Jessica, if you haven't filled out your survey, please do.
Yes, do it. Get on it.
We need the surveys.
We will all do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. Bye now. Thank you.